So yes, these 5 key lines of actions that we've kind of always mentioned very often in United Cities and local governments refer to awareness raising, advocating for local governments, bridging the governance gap, capacity building, and monitoring. And then this is something that we've been talking about for the Sustainable Development Goals, but it's also very much to the point in also for resilience building and disaster risk reduction. So in terms of awareness raising, as we were discussing this like earlier today, it goes from raising awareness of citizens, community members, young people, but also at the local government level and local government associations, raising awareness of resilience building and the importance of investing with a long-term kind of vision of environmental trends, climate change, how those investments are going to pay off when they're thinking of the scale of hazards that can hit us in every 10 years, as we were looking, for example, yesterday with the feasibilities game. So one interesting example of this kind of awareness raising to local governments is something that the Netherlands local government association does through a crisis management training for Dutch mayors, which is something they provide to all of the new mayors every, I'm not sure if it's 3-4 years. And it's part of kind of a general training that they give to new mayors so that they understand the association, the different services that they provide. And they have this web-based game providing a strategic dilemmas training for crisis management, something similar to what we did yesterday with the feasibilities game, but going beyond only kind of natural hazards. So it has different scenarios dealing with pandemics, public order issues, and systemic failures of the system, and how do they react. And it's also very interesting because, as was mentioned by one of the groups today, media plays a big role in that. So the game plays with how is an event showcased in the media, and the way that they get feedback from their decision is through a news article report that reports, because you made this decision, this is how this is being shown in the media, this is what people are thinking about it, what different stakeholders are responding to that decision that you made. And it kind of prepares them to think of how they will manage crisis, how they personally look for the information, coordinate, and decide it. So that's a very interesting example of how we can raise awareness of local government leadership through these dynamic scenarios when they start their term as mayors or councillors. And I'm sure that there's other examples also that we'll look farther on, for example, from the Philippines. On the other time, we have the advocacy. So when we identify, what are the gaps of competences, resources that local government have to prepare for resilience, to invest in resilience projects, it's always easier to kind of advocate together with other local governments, whether it's to the national government, also kind of to if you have international funders that are willing to invest. So we have, for example, the case here, and I think it was mentioned in the previous day, of the impact of COVID-19 on local and regional finances. And this also relates a lot to the monitoring aspect of responsibility of local government associations. And it's looking at the impact that a disaster has and advocating for the appropriate resources to respond to that. So associations across Europe, for example, quickly try to understand the financial impact of the pandemic and advocate to the European Union and the national governments to direct some of the recovery funds directly to local governments so that they could continue providing the public services that were necessary to facilitate people's life after the shock. So I'm not going to go through the different numbers, but like this case is documented in the module if you want to learn more about it. And then we have the bridging the governance gap, which is something that I think was presented in the case of Makati, where like we have different levels of government and associations also kind of going into the disaster risk management committees, councils. There's cases, for example, in Costa Rica where the association is part of the National Disaster Risk Management Committee, bringing the needs and voices of local governments to that, and kind of coordinating between the national and the local level. We have capacity building as well, which is something that we are doing today and through this week, and many of your associations are doing, and you have been involved also with UNDRR, kind of looking for the different resources as well that are out there, and making sure that you can make use of those. In this case, as I was mentioning, the League of Cities of the Philippines does a lot of facilitating linkages and capacity building with together with different partners. So they have the building climate resiliency project through urban plans and design projects supporting some of the local governments. They have the vertical integration and learning for low emission development together with UN Habitat in the Philippines. And they also have this plan collecting funds it's more like on the solidarity area of it. When there's a local government or a city that is hit by a disaster, they collect funds from other local governments in the country to support that, which as was mentioned and was probably thought about in the exercise this morning. And then, the last point, as I was mentioning, monitoring. This is something that is being worked a lot more now as part of the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction, of how do we monitor resilience building, how do we monitor progress on the different targets and priority actions. So to make sure that there's not only local strategies for disaster risk reduction, but that those the actions that are taken, the projects that are implemented, are actually helping to reduce that risk. So together with the SDGs, that is a big topic that we're talking about, of how do we monitor progress, making sure that those indicators are appropriate to the local context, to respond to the local hazards that the different cities and countries are facing, is an important aspect that can be done better if you work together with other municipalities.